should I do this? Should I do that? Where do I start? I think I already did that. When's my next call? I need to work on this. I need to work on that. Priority confusion is a real disease. Most agents can't take action because they don't have a clear plan on what to do and what order to do it in. Remove the priority confusion today. That's what we're going to talk about. How to take massive action and get the right things done in the right order. Let's get started. Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, where we help business-minded real estate agents stop chasing leads and help them start attracting business. We don't claim to make winners here. We do claim that we help winners win bigger and faster. Building your business is building your database, one that works harder for you than you do for it. So if you want to get off the transaction treadmill, keep on listening. If you want the shortcut to dominating your market, then go to www.marketmakersystems.com/demo.
How's it going?
Going really well, Mr. Odo. How are you?
I'm good, brother. Real good. Excited to have Mike back. He's been running and gunning, man. I can hear it in his voice. Sounding like Tony Robbins.
They call me the gunner. Hey, man. So, it's funny when I'm on the road, a lot of the times I get calls intermittently from a lot of friends that, I'll bump into, every day I get calls about people who are joining Market Maker, join the movement, trying to take over their market. And everybody has a different place in where they are, a different stage of their business. Some are solopreneurs, some are hustlers, some are, trying to go to the next level. And it was interesting because I was asking Jake the other day, hey, man, what are we going to talk on the podcast? And he was like, man, we got to talk about taking action. And I didn't realize how important that was until I talked to a buddy when I was in your driving to Kansas City with you the other day. And a buddy of mine said, Mike, I love this Market Maker, but I don't know where to start. And so I want to chime in on this a little bit. So anytime that I get involved with trying to build a business, I start with what are all the processes? What are all the processes in my business? Now, if you read one of the best books in the world on the planet Earth, it's called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, written by Vern Harnish. Real thin book. He wrote a more advanced copy of the same book called Scaling Up. But there was this real important thing that happened in that book for me and Jay, and I think it took us from really just running a real estate agency and a business like, thinking we were, running a business, but really simply running it like a salesman, to actually being organized and organizing all the effort. And the book, what it talks about is getting clear where you want to be in the next 5 years and understanding what you want to do in the next 90 days to get there. And if you're growing real fast, you don't even wait 90 days, you do every 30. And so here's my point. If you're trying to implement anything new, then you have to understand you can't do everything. And that in itself is overwhelming and puts you in the wrong state in order to even implement. In fact, just know that when you think something should be a certain way, that doesn't mean that it's true. In fact, a lot of the times things take time. And so the anxiety and stress that you're creating might be due to your own bad decisions in the past, which are causing you to be in this situation where you're making short-term decisions based upon or long-term decisions based on short-term circumstance. So today, when I get off of this podcast, I've been going around the country. I use the same Market Maker software, and I'm in front of hundreds and hundreds of agents, spreading a message, helping agents who are truly looking at how to scale their customer acquisition, how to get their systems, tools, and processes and business model aligned. And when I leave, there's certain things that I do right now that programmatically I could do with inside Market Maker, but I just don't have the time. And so what I do is I come up with one thing, and I didn't even know that I had this philosophy, but what I did was I was on a plane and I was like same thing with like a real estate agent. I could post a video, a blog. I just offered them a free copy of Digital President if they went to, wyourbusiness.com/resources, whatever, and I'm not saying that you go there. I'm just saying when I go to the event, I'm giving all these free gifts away. One of them is a free copy of my new book. And so I got to text that out, and then we do a survey, and people ask all these questions, and we got to segment them. And, it's no different than anything, like there's people, and to be honest with you, I'm not there to try to sell anything. In fact, the first 8 events I said, if you brought a credit card, I couldn't run it if you wanted to. And so my point is that I still have an opportunity pipeline, and I'm still having to make sure I'm accomplishing whatever goal it is. And so for you, if you're using a software, you have a business as usual. And this was my own, I could be wrong, I'm up for debate, but you in the book Rockefeller Habits, it says that you should have at least 9 core processes in your business that are documented. So, one of those is, what do you do when you have a missed appointment? You have demos, Jake, people call on Market Maker, they miss. You should have a core process for that. If I go to an event and somebody registers, that don't mean they're going to show up. I have to have a core process for reminding them about the event the day of the event. If I don't, people won't show up. So I have to create a sequence of voicemail. And so what you need to be able to do is be able to identify the key leverage points. And you have leverage points in which I would recommend things that create a sale first, because you invest in a software, you have servicing a sale and creating a sale, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you can focus on things, what are the current things in your business? What is that kind of that client life cycle? And if you can identify those key areas, and in every area, whether it's can I give you an example? I know I didn't get to talk on the last one, so
You're making up for it.
Yeah, I got to make up for this.
Right. But it's good. Keep going.
Yeah. So what I think is, like, there's agents on here who got to make money tomorrow, and it's just it's the reality of real estate, and then we have other people on here who genuinely have agents and they need better systems. And so let me give you an example. If I'm talking to a guy with 5 agents, that's 5 agents that all maybe call, maybe leave a voicemail, maybe send a text message, maybe do this, maybe do that. I'm going to try to structure my follow-up and make sure all of my leads come in, and I do the perfect 29-day follow-up sequence for everything they're doing, because then I can have some consistency in that leverage point of making sure 17% of the time my homes are on the market are on a Saturday, 17% are on a Sunday, 34% is on a weekend, and sometimes agents are at the lake playing golf. They're at church. And so if a lead comes in, do they get a text message in 3 minutes, a missed phone call? So what I would say is, let's first maximize what you're already doing. If you already have money, energy, and effort being spent on lead generation, the core process is, we have to make contact with the lead. And so if I was going to prioritize everything, I'm not worried about sending, my past client from 6 years ago a birthday card every birthday from now until the time they die, even though that would be really cool. Right now, let's just start with the new lead that's going to come in tomorrow so that I can get value out of the system. And more importantly, identifying where your bottlenecks are. If maybe you have no lead generation. Well, let's start there. What would I do if it's no lead generation? I'm going to put everybody into a database that I have ever had or met. And I'm going to send them an email and ask them a question or do a survey. What happens if you went to SurveyMonkey and created a free survey that said, hey, doing a homeownership survey in Frisco, question number 1, are you selling in the next 12 months? That's called shaking the trees. And if you haven't got we have a Shake the Trees document that our old boy, our technical writer, wrote.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I just sent it out to some people this week.
Did you? Yeah. So let's tag that in on the site for Market Maker in this, a link to it where they can download it.
Okay.
But the point is that, when in 2016, I built a real estate brokerage from scratch. On January 2nd, I had one part-time agent. His name was Roy. And when I say he was part-time, he was part-time. And he was a good man, but he was part-time. And and by October of that year, I was generating over $500,000. I had over $500,000 scheduled to close on the books in gross commission income. And the reason why is because I had a leading indicator and a scoreboard. So let's say you have a team. One of the things about Market Maker has a scoreboard, right? Mm-hmm. And so So you have a scoreboard, which is a proven principle. I mean, it's funny what people will do for a star, right? Especially if they're A players. They don't want to be number 2, right? Yeah, I mean, Odo hates being number 2.
That's right.
Hates it.
I don't want,
especially when you guys wrestle.
Yeah, especially when we wrestle. And so the point is that you have to go through and identify all the things within the tool. And remember what you're hiring. If you were hiring a software to do a job, what job are you hiring it to do? And what is the value in which, if you were paying someone to do that job really well, would you be willing to pay them, right? And so the software does different things. Services sell, creates a sell. But I can tell you one thing. A lot of people need an ISA, and our current software does the perfect 29-day follow-up sequence. Now, one thing that I want to point out here, there are the basic things like, there's configuration, right? And configuration, when you create a software, where do you start? Get your stuff configured, right? Make sure it's all set up right. So there's emails that I send out every day. And when I'm writing an email, I'm like, could I just turn this into a template and put it into the system? So this week I created 3 templates, right? And now they're in the system. Guess what? I used them. And guess what? Saved me time. Because I went in, learned how to create a template. Now I got leverage through technology. When somebody does XYZ, I used to have to go get an email. Now I just go into the system, drop down, boom, boom, send, right? But for me, it's, think about the different processes that you have in your business. Think about the ones that are time consuming or are not getting you consistent results, or if improved, could generate more revenue, and prioritize those. And then once they're prioritized, execute one at a time. And like most software companies who build software, do one a week. In Rockefeller Habits, they say, large companies go back and look at your different systems and processes and optimize one process a quarter. If you're a fast growing company, optimize one process a month. So do you send an email out to all your past clients every quarter? If not, or every month? Do you do anything? I mean, I was challenged one day to call all my past clients, and guess what? I got 9 referrals. I tell the story all the time. And my buddy who did it next to me, his name was Chad, he got 19. So my question is where are you in your business? If you have agents, one of the things when you have agents is, if you can take 4 agents and increase their productivity by 1 deal a month, that's pretty amazing. But if you have 200 past clients and you can get 1 referral a month, that's pretty amazing. What's overwhelming is trying to do it all at the same time and think you're running behind when that's just in your head. You have to take the 20-mile march. So Jim Collins, he wrote Good to Great, How the Mighty Fall, Great by Choice, right? Built to Last. And one of the biggest takeaways I've ever learned from him was the 20-mile march. And it was about people who climbed Everest, and they try to do too much. And they, all these groups of climbers would go out, and the ones that could consistently achieve the goal, which were the ones that there were days they could climb 30 miles, go 30 miles or whatever it was at the time, right? But they did the 20-mile march. They kept it consistent to the same amount of work every day over time. And it's a pretty good story. You could probably Google it, but the point is that, don't try to put, the weight of your staff, of everything that, takes time on yourself. Break it down into bite-sized sections, organize it based upon value created and revenue generating, or just maybe happiness, and say, what's the one thing that if I get this done makes everything else infinitely easier. Then lay out a goal in which was realistic, in which you can get that one thing done. And if you have troubles, attack it until it's fully implemented. Don't move on to the next thing. Subordinate everything else. This is the Theory of Constraints, the book, The Goal, one of the #1 books written, mandated by most MBA courses. So subordinate everything else to the goal, and then rinse and repeat.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot to digest. I mean, anybody listening to this, you might want to go back and listen to that again, because the amount of little nuggets in that are just unbelievable, and it's so true. And I'm just thinking the whole time, all the things that I've been through and all the lessons learned and how just accurate that information really is. it's pretty phenomenal. Personally, if you're in a position where revenue is your biggest issue, my mental model was always, and it's kind of a joke these days, but a man can't think straight or a woman can't think straight without 10 grand in the bank. And one time I asked the person who taught me that, I said, "Is it really 10 grand?" They said, "No, it's the same." Some people would say it's 3 months of core capital, but the point is, do the things that are revenue generating. And I just want to share the biggest obstacle we have when we're trying to configure somebody is getting their dang lead list uploaded. And it's like, that's the first thing you should do so we can start getting some money out of this thing, Get the lead list uploaded. Oh, well, I just want to kind of see how it works first. That's how it works. It ain't going to work if you don't do that part. So anyway, just some fun things. And just another little small quick tip, because, again, I'm just thinking through my entire life as Mike went through that monologue. One of the best things I did when revenue was the biggest thing for me to focus on was I would schedule the times for me to follow up with leads, and I would do that systematically, just like I had a listing or a showing appointment, and it would just be hard in the calendar. Of course, now we have a lot better tools and techniques and processes to leverage, but I still think that's something that's pretty important. Look at those things that are going to make you money first.
Yeah, and again, my brain was going 8,000 miles an hour. So I'm going to go back and listen to what Reese just went over, because there is so much gold there. And if you really understand it, and if you can prioritize the things that actually are the most dollar productive, what happens is usually those dollar productive activities are ones that you either don't love doing or just are hard. So you don't love doing them, whatever it may be. You find reasons and you find other things to do in your business or not in your business, or effort or focus that goes towards other things, when you know what the number one thing is that you need to be doing, but a week goes by and you still haven't done it, but you've done a lot of other things that don't really move the needle. And, what I've seen work the best in doing this, for us, we've done, quarterly strategy forever, which is part of the Mastering the Rockefellers habits and scaling up. But in that, we were forced every quarter to go through. We meet on a monthly basis over what is priority and the company and what's the strategy, what's the big, hairy, audacious goal. Like, we've got that all dialed in. But the key is being able to go through. We list out what are all the possible things that we could focus on. And then as a group, we decide what is going to be the one thing, or, sometimes I think we made a mistake one time that was kind of catastrophic. I think we had like 7 priorities for a quarter, and we did none of them really well. The best one we ever had was when we had one big priority, and it was everybody focused on one big thing that was going to move the needle for the company the most. So when you take that, you don't have to go off site and do a whole strategy by yourself, especially if you're a solopreneur at the time or a hustler. But what you can do is we got a yellow pad in front of us right now. I would take a piece of paper and I would write down all the things that I know I need to do in my business. And that might take you 15 minutes. That might take you 2 hours. That might take you a whole day, or you might be adding to that list throughout the week. But what I would do is all the things that I know I want to implement in my business, all the things I know I need to improve upon in my business, I would write those things down. And then once you have a solid list, prioritize them based off of what's going to make you the most amount of money, right? And if money is not a problem, then it's probably what's going to get you leverage the most so you can get some more time back, and focus on those things. But it is so difficult. And when you start writing these things down, you'll know why you're not taking action on anything, because it gets heavy when you have all of these things. You're like, okay, I got to do that, and I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I got to do this. And then all that does is cause inaction, and you start using the old paralysis by analysis, and you're starting to think of everything and all the reasons why you shouldn't do this before that, which causes you to do nothing. But when you have a list written down and you can look at it, and when you can check something off, there is something with checking something off in a list that releases endorphins in your brain and will make you feel better. And just knock them out in order of priority, and reprioritize depending on what, the last one solved or whatever it may be, and reprioritize and attack that list. and just work from that. Odo, you have a list that you make pretty much every day, don't you? You keep it in like your back pocket.
Yeah. every week, yeah. And everybody still laughs at me because it's paper, but I fold it the same way I've been doing it for, since I was 17 and a couple of decades. And I didn't know that about the endorphin release of checking stuff off. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
But I do feel better. I feel less stressed. You know what I mean? Like if I go in on Monday and I don't have a chance to reprioritize and make my new list, take the stuff I didn't get done off the old one, I feel overwhelmed. And that's really interesting. I didn't know the psychology behind that. I just know what I like to feel like, and that's not it. I know we got a hard stop here shortly, but I did want to add one quick thing about a documentary I watched. It's called Happiness. And it was very interesting. And I would highly recommend everybody to check out this documentary, because one of the reasons why we don't do the things that we know we should do is because they're uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable to go through and, make that phone call or make that series of calls or do the tests that are necessary. But what I learned in that documentary is that when you do things over and over again on a repetitive basis, you create mastery. And through that mastery of that skill set, you gain a tremendous amount of happiness. And I forget the specific saying, but wherever your comfort zone, whenever you're out of it, you're growing. That's a short amount of time, but the growth doesn't stop because it's no longer uncomfortable. Now you're really excited. I mean, they had like short order cooks flipping around the spatulas, just murdering the grill and showing their level of happiness as they measured it and how much happier it was than a lot of other people. And interestingly, just a quick short side note, the amount of happiness that people gain from monetary gain does not increase exponentially past like a comfort zone of like 50,000 a year. Once you're making about 50,000, you can still eat the same steak anybody else can, and your happiness doesn't increase exponentially if it's 500,000 versus the 50. But just wanted to throw that side note in there.
Fascinating.
That is fascinating. So for me, guys, make a list of the functions in your business. Identify the functions that are I would prioritize. The functions that currently that give me leverage, the most leverage, create the most value. We have a deal called the 9 box that I know what they're going to be for most people, but then just have a process for getting one thing implemented. And here's the point. Don't have scope creep. Define what actually success is in 3 to 4 sentences. So an example would be when every lead gets a text message, an email, and a voicemail over 29 days after they're created. That's the goal. The goal isn't and gets direct mail and gets, because then, you have like a real defined goal, and then define into like, okay, what are the 5 high level things that need to happen? Well, first I need to get on the phone and find out what needs to, whatever it is for you, the 5 things, then just put them into, it's called the art of deconstruction. There's a book called Learn Anything in Less Than 20 Hours, and it teaches you how to deconstruct things so that you can learn and put them back together. But the same thing is when you're reading a book and someone's trying to teach you a topic, they've deconstructed it down into pieces so that you're learning a desired outcome. And so if your goal is to implement the 29-day follow-up, well, first of all, if all your leads ain't coming into the system, they're not going to get the follow-up. So step 1 would be get all the leads coming in the system. Step 2 would be, and if you don't know the steps, but you can identify the outcome, then now you at least know what questions to ask. And that's when you say, okay, if this is my goal, who's the first person, who's the number 1 person that I need to reach out to find out what I need to do next? And again, subordinate everything else. Give yourself permission to not work on something for the next week or 2 weeks or even the month. Like, hey guys, listen, I'm not going to have this song in the back of my head creating, unnecessary anxiety. I know it needs to be done, but I ain't getting to it. So here's what I'm doing. I'm doing this and this week. Everything else is going to have to wait, and then I'll reevaluate. And there's a book called, and I'm not trying to give you a bunch of books, but it's not called Sprint, is it? What is the red Scrum? Yeah, Scrum.
Scrum.
Scrum. There's a red book called Scrum. It's a great book. It's used for getting work done. And I kind of gave you a generic version of it, but I know that it was extremely valuable to us, especially, when you do a conference or an event or anytime you're trying to get to this thing completed, it's just a way that you organize the effort. So with that being said, man, that's all I got for today.
I love it.
Yep. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys. And don't forget, you want to build a business that works harder for you?
Then you do for it.